Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are live from Inkarnate University. Today, we are creating a small castle with the fantasy battle map style. They're kind of a staple of both the medieval ages in a historical sense, and also they're iconic for any fantasy setting that you could possibly imagine. Now, what you see in front of you is the castle components that we'll be creating in the first part of the stream. And if you look to the right side of it, you'll notice that I put a castle with those components. So that's what we're going to be doing in this stream. So I'm super excited about that. If you are looking for the map link so that you can clone and edit this, I'm going to put that in the chat, and I will also pin it for you. So go ahead and clone and edit this if you want to play around with it and kind of see how I put it together, if you prefer to reverse engineer. If not, just come stick around and I will make sure to show you how to put together the fortified elements as well as the necessary infrastructure that you need to maintain a small castle. And it's important that we do a small castle first before we go into much larger ones, because castles are kind of difficult to put together, but we can kind of create a method that will make it easier for you to put them together. And then once you've kind of mastered or put together the concepts of putting together a smaller castle, you'll be able to make a much larger one. So that's kind of important for that. So again, check that link in the chat. It is pinned at the top. Go check that out. Hey, first time chatter, by the way, French Fantasy. Glad that you're here. So let's create a new map. And we're going to go to Fantasy Battle Maps. And what I'll do here is I'm going to do a custom aspect ratio. And so what I'll do is, instead of going 40 by 30, I'll do 80 by 30. And so in other words, I'm doubling the landscape aspect ratio, because on one side I want room to put together the components, and on the other side I'll put together the castle, put all the pieces together. And in that way, when I do come to resize it, it'll be a standard landscape size, and I just cut out the parts where the components are. So we'll go ahead and create that, create new map. Hey, Tang Whistle. Glad that you are here. Awesome. I see some new faces. I love to see that. Okay. So first things first is that we probably want to set a scale. What I'll end. Hey, Bitter Dam, by the way, welcome. Glad that you are here as well. Love having you here. I'm going to fill up the screen with gray. It's just this way that I'm not distracted by the artifacts and that dirty texture behind it. Hey, Coffee Mug, welcome. Glad that you're here. So we'll set scale first. And I think this right here will probably work fine. Castles are fairly have fairly large, I mean, as structures. There's some really tiny ones out there, but we'll make it to where the grid's about this size. We could probably change the grid more if we really wanted to. Like, we could put it down to 40. So this would kind of bring the scale up a little bit. Let's just leave it at 40 for now. So this will set our scale. And then from there, we're going to want to create what's first and foremost is the fortified segments. Now, something that is fortified means that it's crenellated. And crenellations are where you have this kind of, let me go ahead and create this for you so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So basically, let's go ahead and put in a path here. Here we go. We'll make it a different color so you can kind of see it. I just want to make sure that it's obvious what fortifications are. So right here, you have what's something called crenellations. And a crenellation is what you use to defend, to protect the defenders from insurgents or from siege people. Okay, now in the crenellation, the thing that pops out, that's called a merlon. So this part right here is called the merlon, while this part right here is called the embrasure. Okay, and now when you are putting together your castle components, you're going to go to the shape tool, you're going to choose a stamp, and you're going to want to choose these castle walls right here, because you notice that it has the merlons and it has the embrasures. And those, again, are called crenellations. All right, so we're going to choose that as our wall. We're also going to want to choose a roof or a flat surface for where the turret part is. That's where troops are stationed to do the defending. And you could choose whatever you wanted to. You could use this right here, this warm rocky texture, I think works well. It works with the color of the stone for the crenellated castle walls, and it also is around the same color and everything. So that looks good. We'll have to adjust the stamp size as well as the fill size. First, let's just make a very basic tower, I'm going to make sure my snap to grid is on. You'll notice it's here at the bottom, snap to grid. And what I'll do is I'm going to make sure I change the stroke scale. So I'll make sure it's set to 100. And we'll bring the scale down even more. There we go. Okay, let's create a basic structure, maybe 15 by 15 feet. So I think we're going to call this, this fortified structure can just be a regular square tower. Okay, but you notice that the texture is quite large. So let's bring the scale down. And what I'm trying to mimic is kind of this very light gravel-like texture that you would see at the top. Okay, and next what I want to do is I'll go into my shadow settings, and I'm just going to bring the blur down and bring the intensity up just a little bit. And we're going to create like a drop shadow, or what's called ambient occlusion. And what this will do is when you put a dark shadow on there, it makes a structure pop out. So that kind of looks nice. So there's your basic concept. This is going to be your fortified structures. Now, if you wanted to add a roof to it, you could totally do that. You would just type in roof component or roof here. And then I'll choose, I think this square moonlit looks just fine. We'll kind of use this shape and we'll just put it right on top. Okay, so that means you have a roof on top of your tower there. You don't have to have that there if you don't want to. It's up to you. Okay, and if you don't like the color, you can always change the hue and stuff, which I intend to do. What I think I'll do is I'll kind of use this more brown, kind of thatchy type of color. And I'll make the custom object shadow to where, again, it's like a drop shadow or ambient occlusion. We'll bring the blur and the intensity up, and then you would put that on top like that. So now you have the components that are necessary for your first tower, and it can be roofed or not roofed. Okay, so now not complex. Now, so that's the simple shapes, right? You could make that. You could also make like a fortified structure like this, a rectangle. You could also make a circle shape as well, right? So there's multiple shapes that you could create when you're trying to put it together. Like if you wanted to have a roof for this one, just use that same piece right here, scale it down, and you can place it on top of here. And if it doesn't fit right, it's easy to fix this. You just select the shape, make sure that you select the nodes, and then you can just, boom, there you go. Now you have a nice fortified structure right there with a roof. All right, so not complex to kind of put them together, but there's also all kinds of shapes that you can make, right? There's also polygon shapes as well. If we want a tower or a keep to be a polygon shape, we can totally do that. It's super easy to do. Check this out. We can go over to the shape tool. We're going to choose polygon and just choose how many you want, right? Let's create an octagon at 8. That's pretty much the most recognizable one, right? Or if you want to create something a little bit more odd, right? You can totally do that too, like this shape. So you can create a series of shapes that you want. Just know that the roofing for these shapes are a little bit more complex, but I'll show you how to put them together. It's actually pretty cool. For roofs like this, I would copy and paste the same shape that you did, remove the fill, and then replace the stroke with a roof piece. And so what I'll do is I'll use this one right here. There's your first part of the shape right there. We're going to flip it to make sure that it's inside. We're going to scale it down. And you'll notice that there's a hole there, right? Now you can have that hole there if it's an open part. You can. If not, what you can do is just copy and paste and put another one on top of it. And then just bring the scale up so it matches the same scale as the one below it. And then just take a circular roof piece and then put it on top like that. There you go. So now you have a simple roof piece that goes on top like that. All right, so not complex when you're putting roof shapes together. And then what I'll do is go ahead and remove that. So you get the general idea on how to put together the roofs with the different shapes. Super easy to put together, not complex. So let's actually start making some pieces. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll have a roof here. So we want a regular square tower. We want a circular tower. And let's go ahead and make the roof piece for that as well. And I'll go ahead and make sure that the object shadows are the same. Bring the blur, intensity up. There we go. Okay. And then again, I'm going to change the hue to what I want it to be. There we go. And we'll just make sure that it scales to fit on there. There we go. All right, nice. And if you have snap to grid, then that will make that a lot easier. Okay, so we've got the first simple elements put together, right? A single square and a circle tower. Let's talk about some iconic fortified structures that you're going to see with a castle. The first one is going to be the Gatehouse, or what's referred to as the Portcullis. So a gatehouse is pretty easy to make. There are some basic shapes for gatehouses. I'll make two of them just so you can get a general idea for the shape of them. The first one is a very simple one where you have a shape like this, and then I can just take two circles and then put them on the side here, and I'll have to adjust the stamp scale so they're on the same. Copy, paste. Let's give it a moment here to copy and paste. There we go. And then you have a very simple gatehouse, or what sometimes they're referred to as a barbican, which is like a separate portcullis or gatehouse that comes before the actual gatehouse. So this could be a barbican or it could be a gatehouse. And if you wanted to verify that it is a gatehouse, you can throw on some elements to make it clear that it's a gatehouse by putting on maybe like a drawbridge or something. You could use this shape right here. Since it's a small castle, it's not an expensive castle. In fact, historically, most castles were pretty small because it was really, really expensive to afford all the stone, all the labor that it would require. Like if you didn't have the wealth, you would have to force labor. If you didn't have the men to enforce the labor upon peasants, then you would need the money to afford to pay the laborers. So generally, if you were a not a very wealthy lord, you would be able to afford a small castle, and so less you're going to have less fortified structures and more wooden structures. Like some of your battlements would be wooden. All right. So the idea, right, is that you want to, when we think of a smaller castle, it's going to be not as wealthy as other nobles or lords. But when we get to maybe later in our castle series, we'll create much larger, more epic castles, especially with more fantasy elements in there. So you could throw on this drawbridge right here just to show that there's a drawbridge. And then you could also include the chains that are necessary, or rope, doesn't really matter. We'll go with chain. And you'll kind of see that there are some chain elements. We can use this right here, and I'm just going to desaturate it so that way it's gray. And then we'll turn off the snap to grid. I just don't need it right now. And you can put these pieces right here, and then we can just take a simple piece of chain right here. And in fact, we can just use the we'll use this tool to do it. So chain like this. We'll use this one. I'm going to turn the caps off. I'll turn a shadow off as well. I don't know what the stamp scale size is quite yet. And we're just going to click right here and then put them right here like this. There we go. Okay. And so this will just denote that there is a drawbridge there. We'll push it down. They're below. I think the angle's off there, so we'll push it a little bit more this way. There we go. And then, of course, the other thing that you want to do is to make sure that there is a way to get to these locations. So one thing we could do is push these towers up a level and then also put down some stairs. Let's use these ones right here. Should be fine. And these stairs lead into these towers right here. So you could do that. And I think the color is a little bit off. So great tricks. Remember, did you use that luminosity blend mode? We'll bring the contrast down, bring the brightness up. And then you have these nice stairs that kind of lead up into these towers. Or you could add in a trap door. We type in stair. Oh, it's already there. You can use these ship stairs. Actually, I think work fairly well. You can just, again, none, normal, luminosity. There you go. And you can throw that in there. I might have to change the grid size because I still think this is quite large. So we'll get to that in a moment. But right now I'll use this stamp right here as a guide. So now you could put these staircases anywhere. Just make sure that there's room for defenders to move around. So copy and paste in the center works fairly well. You can move them off to the side. Just make sure that there's room for access for defenders to get to all parts of that turret or that wall, okay? Now, once you've kind of put that all together, then you can create group, and then you can label it. So we'll just call this a gatehouse. This is the probably one of the, next to the keep, one of the more iconic parts of a castle, right? And then we'll end up scaling these down as well. They're a little on the large size. So there's the one gatehouse. But there are other gatehouse shapes that you can create as well. I'll show you another one that works fairly well. We'll go ahead and turn the snap to grid on here. Like this. Let's use this shape. We're going to also create a shape here and a shape here. Oopsie, it doesn't look like it merged properly. There we go. Now it merged. Now I can go in here. Let's make sure that the merge works. There we go. Aha, there we go. Another gatehouse you could create is this one right here, right? Where it has these kind of turrets that stick out so that way defenders can attack going in this way, right here. They can attack from that part over to there as well as right here. So another like simple concept for a gatehouse there. And you could also put in the necessary elements. We'll stick with this one, but you get the general idea on how to kind of put together the gatehouses. All right, so gatehouse complete. We've got towers, we've got roof components. Let's make the next iconic, or really the most iconic, which is the castle. Okay, so we'll start with the castle. I'm going to start with just your basic shapes. Let's just do a big square. Nothing complex. So here's the gatehouse, a nice, simple, or not gatehouse, sorry. The next thing that I might want is to put maybe some towers on the corners of them. So I could just use this, use these towers, just scale them back down, and then I can change the stamp scale up. So let's start with a very basic shape for a keep. Keeps can be way more complex than this, but let's start with this basic shape right here, which you just have a square, and then you have the towers on each corner. Now, what you could do is have one, normally what I personally like as an artist, I'd prefer to have some asymmetry, but this works just fine. What we could do is create another section of it. Let's have maybe a fortified chapel that's attached to it. So I'll turn my merge shape off for now, and then I'll kind of create this chapel piece that's going to be attached to the castle. So I'll put it on like this. I have my merge shape off. We'll push this down. And then what I will do is I will end up merging. We'll turn the merge shape back on. And I want to create like the sacristy part or the sanctuary part of it. So we'll have a circular part right here. In fact, we should go even more than that. Right here. No, let's keep going even more. I'll try this one. There we go. Okay. So this will be the chapel piece. And the way that I would put together the roofing for this part is not too complex. 1 second, I'll put it together. What you could do is just copy and paste this piece right here. Push it down. Let's bring the size down. There we go. Right there. And then you could take another piece right here. And I'm going to turn that snap to grid off. Snap to grid does not always work exactly the way you want it to. So let's go ahead and put that piece there. Actually, you know what? That's not the right roofing piece. Let's actually use this instead. This will work better. Let's type in roof. The blue ones, let's go with, I think this one right here will work just fine. I will go ahead and click this. Oopsie, I see the stamp scale is huge, so we'll have to bring it down quite a bit. Let's turn that snap to grid back on. There we go, right here. And then I'm going to do that same settings. There we go. And then we'll change the stamp scale a little bit, and then we'll place it up on top right here, and we're going to scale it up. Let's bring the scale down just a little bit. There we go. Okay. So now you have this nice chapel right here. We'll create group and call it chapel. Oops, chapel, that's not helpful. Okay. Okay. Hey, first time chatter. That's a question that's not suitable necessarily for this particular stream. I'm sure there's someone in the chat that can help you. Oh, my bad. I thought you were, my bad, my mistake. Okay. Thank you, Philip, by the way, for helping them out. Much appreciated. Indeed, you can. Totally can. In fact, we have tons of streams on our YouTube channel that help you with putting biomes on your world maps. So definitely go check that out. So I'm putting the chapel and I'm attaching it to the side right here of the castle. And what I'll also do is create a larger tower. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll think I'll create an awkward, a different shape here. Okay, let's go ahead and create the main tower. We'll make it an octagon shape. And we'll put it right here. And this will get rid of the symmetry of the map. You could even put it like right here, or you could move it over to here. But this just kind of removes the asymmetry that I feel is there. And since there's some already roofing on there, we'll go ahead and put some roofs on top of here. There we go. Copy, paste. Copy, paste. There we go. So we have a nice keep right here. We'll go ahead and create group. We're going to call it the keep. And then what we'll end up doing is scaling all these down because they are massive, absolutely massive. So we've got a keep right here. We have our gatehouse right here. We have our towers. Okay. All right. These are most of the what are going to be like the fortified sections. So I think what we'll do now is we'll create the infrastructure elements. And this is actually pretty easy stuff. So there's, depending on how wealthy the lord of the castle is, depends on what kind of infrastructure they can support. You know what I mean? Like a glass blower probably wouldn't be in a very small castle. It's very expensive. It's hard to get the equipment. It's it's a hard process, so it's very expensive. So the basic kind of infrastructure you'll find in a smaller castle would be something like food. So there might be a small garden or a field in there. So that way, if it is sieged, there will be some food. So that way you can, if you're doing kind of trying to survive a siege, they'll be able to eat. You're also probably going to need like a stonemason. You're probably going to need someone that's going to be doing carpentry. You're probably going to need stables. Those kind of things are necessary. So what we'll do is we'll create those basic infrastructure stuff. And what's really cool is that you can make your own buildings using the line tool and shape tool. So right here, you'll see that I have this shape right here. I can make a ton of buildings with this. What's great is that I can just copy and paste. I don't have to make a whole bunch. I can just copy and paste and just add elements. So let's create like the first one, maybe like, I don't know, maybe like a hall. It could be a feast hall. You could have that. This could be like a farmer's shed. It could be whatever you want. There's a lot of different options here that you can kind of choose from. Let's go put that first one down, and then let's go ahead and turn the grid off for now, or at least push it down some layers, and I'll bring the opacity down. There we go. That way it's not kind of distracting. So you have that first building. Let's go ahead and throw in some very important items. For instance, a chimney is going to be important, which is not popping up right now for some reason. Let's try again. Interesting. Not popping. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong tool. Here we go. There we go. All right. Awesome. Perfect. Okay. I'm just going to make it gray. And then where you put where you put the chimney is up to you. You can put one on the side right here. You can put it more right here. It's up to you. So I'll just put it here for now. And I'm going to put a kind of a thick shadow on it so that it looks like it's got some height to it. There we go. It's lighter than the color. See how it's a little bit lighter than this material here? That will also use contrast to make that pop out. Let's also throw in like the roof pieces. So let's type in roof again. And there should be window pieces. You're going to need these window pieces. So right here are some window pieces. And again, we'll just make it to make sure the color is right. I might make them just a little bit brighter to make them pop out. We'll bring the scale down. And the one thing that I want to do is I also want to put in a shadow because it looks like it looks kind of flat. And so what I end up doing is I'll just use a color like this. I'll make it black. I'm going to bring that blur up quite a bit. There we go. So you have a nice shadow right there. I'm going to put it right here. Right along here to make it look like this part pops out more. So let's bring the scale a little bit more up. There we go. And put that shadow there. And then I'll copy. I'm going to create this group and just, these are what are called, I forgot the name of these, but they're a type of window. Forgot the name of them. Let me type in window here. Okay, create. And now I can kind of create as many window pieces as I want right here like this. So I can put on maybe copy, paste. Maybe I want to put one over here or one over here. If they're not lined up properly, not hard, just select both. Go to align, distribute, center vertically. Now they're vertically assigned. Then let's do the same thing with this side here. In fact, we'll just take one off here. This will replace the chimney. Let's put one right here. You can also create pop-outs. So we might want to create like a pop-out, and that's not hard to do. Just take one of these right here and just put it underneath. So this would be below. So this could be like the entrance way that goes in. You could also put it right here if you wanted to. You could put it over here. That would be in the way of the fireplace. But I put it right here. Let's put it right here. There you go. Another little spot here. We're going to go with custom object shadow. I want to make sure that it pops out. Gable dormer. Thank you. It is indeed a dormer. Thank you. And the gable means that it makes this A-frame shape, just so you know. Okay. Bring the blur on here. The intensity. There we go. And then the last thing that you'll want to create is you'll want to create an entrance. Like, how do I get into this? The easiest one is just to create stairs. Just take a stair piece, put it down, and you can have many different ways of doing a stair component. You could have a stair that just goes in straight like this. Just goes in nice and easy, straight in like that. Or you can add in one that has what's called a landing. So let's go ahead and throw that down. You could throw this in like this. These look a little bright to me, so let's bring the darkness down a little bit. And then you could have like this. And then what you would have here is that they would go up the step right here and then into the building like that. So pretty easy stuff, not complex, right? And then once you've kind of put all that together, then you can just create group, and we'll call it a farmer's house or a house. Great. So now you have a house, and you can scale it. Just know that you'll have to change the size of some elements as you go. So we'll just add on our first element. So, and then from here, you can kind of create a whole bunch of other ones as well. What's really nice is there already are some shapes that are here. I can't seem to escape. There we go. Okay. You can just, same thing here, copy and paste this right here, and then just put the fireplace piece right on top of this one. Another piece right here. So put that wherever you want. And then same thing, I can just add a little staircase to go to it. Just copy and paste that piece. So you kind of get the idea on how to kind of put basic little shapes together. So here's just a small, like, little shed right here. So you're kind of putting all the pieces together. Okay, what are we at for time here? Let's go ahead and make just a couple more pieces. I'm going to fix the shadow to this right here. I noticed that there's not much of a shadow there. In fact, there is none at all. There we go. That's better. We'll adjust this shadow here. There we go. I just want to make sure that it's got a shadow there so it'll pop out. Let's make just a couple more structures. I'll use the same thing here. I'll just copy and paste this one right here. We'll bring the scale up. Let's rotate it this way. And then let's just copy and place and then put another one on. And then we'll kind of create this kind of other piece right here. There we go. Okay. And then don't forget that putting in a fireplace or a chimney. There we go. Let's put in some stairs. We'll put the entrance in right here. Bring that down. There we go. And then I'll put in those windows as well. Probably should take these and put them outside, so I don't have to keep opening up that group. That would probably be best. Okay. All right, let's put these on top here. Let's go ahead and put our windows in here. Let's put one right here as well, facing here. Okay. You guys are getting the general idea. Pretty simple stuff. Create group. Okay. Now that you kind of get the general idea on how to put together the components for the castle, now we can actually start putting the castle together. And really, what kind of determines the overall shape and the layout of the castle is not complex. It's pretty simple. It's the landscape, all right? For someone who's building a castle, the advantage for defense is always the landscape. And there's going to be the natural part of the landscape, which they'll take to their advantage, as well as sculpting the landscape to your advantage when it comes to defense. So let's just save this. We're at 207 changes. That's quite a bit. So let's go ahead and save these changes, and we'll start putting together the landscape part. And what I want to make to the landscape is that I want to have it to be kind of unique. It needs to have natural features, like up on a hill is generally what would be like a rocky outcropping, like maybe on a cliffside. All of those things have natural defenses, or maybe on a river island, or on a lake island, or along the coastline upon a cliff. All of those things, so that way, if it's on a cliff, then the cliff side, that side, it's completely defensible, right? People would have to climb or find a way or use some fantasy element like an airship to try to attack that side. The side that's on the other side of the cliff where there's land, that's the part that's going to end up being defended. So remember, landscape or terrain is going to be super important. And the way that I put my terrain down first, what I'll do is I'm going to use the add mode of the mask tool, and I'm going to fill up a section. And there's a reason why I want to use the add mode of the mask tool. So let's go ahead and set this shape, snap to grid, and then we're going to make the castle over here. So we'll add, there we go. And I'm going to turn off mask effects. Attacking with a dirigible is always a good idea. Yes, that's a fact. Okay, let's go ahead and turn off the mask effects. You just don't really need them. And so what I'll end up doing is I'll use the shape tool to create the hill. Usually you want to have some kind of height. And if you're building a castle in a place where there's not hills or height, then maybe dirt or rock can be moved to create a mount for the castle to be on. If there's not any kind of height or elevation to the advantage of the builders, then you might want to create a moat around it. If it's got all of the above, a moat plus the height, that's all to the advantage of the defenders, right? That's what you really want. What defines the layout of a castle, what makes it defensible, is knowing the terrain and then building it around or on top of that terrain. That's the trick. So again, I'll go ahead and choose the shape tool. I'm going to choose a stamp that's going to represent basically where I want to have some cliffs. I usually like to use the hill. I find the hill stamps are great, and I'll use them both the rocky hill and the not rocky hill. And what I want is to create a really kind of unique shape, because I want my castle to not just be a regular oblong shape. I want it to look interesting and unique. So what I'll do is I'll use the paint option. I also want to just place it down to see how big the stamp is. Let's see here. This is how big the stamp is. Let's flip it right here so that the cliff is on the outside. Let's take a look. The hill, I think about that size looks good. Let's go with that size. Now let's create the shape. What I want is I'm going to create something really interesting, like a really bizarre type of hill with like some sharp like angles on it. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to create a unique looking castle. So some of the more generic castles are ones where it's just like a square. What's referred to as like kind of like a concentric castle, where it's kind of symmetrical. And those castles exist and they work just fine. Concentric castles work really well because they're the same shape, and therefore they're kind of easy to defend because there's no awkward corners or anything. It's symmetrical. So it shouldn't be too hard to defend. right? But what I want to create is something unique and different. So what I'll do is I'll just create a unique like shape. Let's scale it down. I want some room. I might put a mode or I might not. Let's bring the stamp scale up. I'm going to copy and paste this and then put another one down. And I'm going to choose a different one. I'm going to choose this hill. Oopsie, not that one. The second hill option. I'm going to push it down below this and I'm going to bring the scale up. Let's take a look at it. It's facing the wrong way. There we go. And I'm going to place it right underneath this. And it's going to give it that extra sense of height. All right, there we go. Let's keep fitting it till it goes all the way, fits all the way in it. Let's turn off that snap to grid too. That's not my ally here. There we go. So now you see these two pieces right here kind of create that terrain. So what I'll do is I'll create group and I'll type in and I'll call it terrain. There we go. So now you have this nice shape here. We'll scale it up just a little bit here, and then you can always resize. Sometimes the scale doesn't work the way that you want it to, and so you'll have to end up resizing the map. We could even rotate it like this to kind of give it a little bit more interesting kind of shape there. We'll go with this right here. Okay, so there's step one right there, right? Is creating the terrain part, and we'll end up doing some texturing and stuff. Let's see what time is it. 36, we got time. Let's copy and paste that same shape again, but this time we're going to choose those fortified walls. Right here, castle walls. We're going to place them right here. We're going to change the scale. We're going to flip it. We want to make sure that the crenellated part is facing outward. Remember what the crenellations are. That's where you see the merlons and the embrasures, right? And then we're going to go ahead and flip it, and we're going to place it down. I want to put it right, scale it just where I fit it. So now you see you have this interesting kind of unique shape that works great. So we'll go ahead and I'm just going to quickly save, and then we'll go ahead and start putting down some elements. We'll start putting some textures down. We're going to put all that stuff together. Thank you for waiting. Normally what I'll do is from here is I'll start like texturing the inside with a texture that I want. You'll also notice that the texture that I've used for the background is scaled way, way up. It needs to be scaled way down. Like if you look carefully at the scale, these blades of grass are absolutely massive, aren't they? So let's fix that problem. Let's go in here. We're going to type in grass. That way it's easy to find. Well, I like this one, and we'll bring the scale down. Those blades of grass should not be that big. So we'll go ahead, go to FG, fill. There we go. So now that we've got that scaled figured out. So what I do for the inside is I usually start with a series of layers of textures. And what I'll start with is dirt first. Dirt is the first one that I will put, because then you can put the stone and the grass on top of that dirt, right? So I'll create dirt, and I'm going to make it a little bit darker. We're going to make sure that the scale is correct. We'll bring the scale down. And then what I'll do here is just put this in right here. And it's okay if it goes on to those hills. Those hills have clipping masks, and that's kind of good. I kind of want some of that dirt to kind of pop up or show up on here as well. I think it just kind of looks nicer. So dirt is the first layer. Okay. Now I won't be adding the other layers like the grass and the stone until I've placed my structure. So this is just that base texture that's inside what's called the bailey or ward. You could have multiple baileys or wards. You can have an inner ward and an outer ward. Okay, now since inner wards and outer wards require more stone, I won't include this in this one. We'll do the inner and outer wards in a much larger castle, because then there's less room to place the stamps. So from here, we need to start placing the components. I'll select all these and just lock it. That way they're locked and I don't accidentally select them. And so now the next step is I want to start with, what I'll start with is the gatehouse or the portcullis. Now this is kind of a large portcullis, so we'll have to bring the scale down. Let's bring the size up. Now let's bring the scale down. There we go. Okay, that looks about right. And then if you feel the wall is too big, you can adjust it. Now where you want the gatehouse, it really is in juxtaposition to where the keep will be. So if I'm going to have my gatehouse here, it doesn't make sense to put the keep right next to it, right? You want it to make it difficult for the attackers to not just get in, but once they're in, it's also difficult for them to maneuver around inside and to get to the keep. So when you do place the keep, I would not place it next to the gatehouse or the portcullis, right? Give it some distance. Give time for troops to kind of come together as in a staging area, and then they can move towards the gatehouse while it takes time for the attackers to get from the gatehouse over to the keep. So that's really how I go about placement. You put the gatehouse down, and then wherever the gatehouse is, the furthest location from it, I'll put the keep. So let's go ahead and scale down the keep so it fits in here. And the furthest from the keep is like right here. And I think this is a nice spot right here. We can put this tower right there on that edge. I think that looks good. And then we'll also put the chapel to where it's lining up right here. So that first part is where that keep and where that gatehouse is. The other thing that you might want to do is add stuff, defensible positions along the wall with towers, or what are called wall towers. So we'll copy and paste a tower, and we'll place them in defensible positions. And then we're also going to create wall walk as well. In fact, let's go put down the wall walk right now. I probably should have made that after creating the wall. My mistake. Let's go ahead and unlock everything. Let's select the castle shape wall again, copy, paste it, and then we'll choose something to act as the wall walk. Now, since this is a small castle, we won't use stone for the wall walk. We're going to use wood. Remember, it's kind of a smaller castle, so it kind of makes sense to use wooden embattlements. And what I'll do is I'll just use that same shape. We're going to make sure that it's scaled in like this. Make sure that it's scaled right. I think that works good. And we'll have to change some of the points. You notice that it kind of looks off a little bit. We'll have to fix some of those points, and that's okay. The other way that you can do that is just increase the size of the stamp scale. Like that if you want. But you'll notice that some of it is a little too, it's kind of hard to fit in. You'll have to do some adjustments in there, and that's not too hard. You just go over here, choose your points here, and then we can kind of adjust them where we see fit to make sure that there's enough room for wall walk. Okay, let's go ahead and move these parts over to here. Well, oops, it's a little too much. Let's see here. Let's scale up a little bit. Let's also change some of the settings here. I want it to be a little bit darker. Bring the brightness down. In fact, I don't think I want to use that one. Let's use a different wooden one instead. What would work better? I mean, I do like that, but we can kind of take a look at other options here that we might want to use for wall walk. This dock right here might also work fairly well for wall walk, I think. Might work okay. And the only problem is it's just trying to fit it in to the scale part, which is kind of difficult here. Okay, we'll bring that scale up a little bit more. Okay, so that looks like you've got the wall walk around the whole thing. We'll bring the brightness down on it, and then we'll change the shadow as well. Okay, there we go. So now you have the wall walk that goes around it, and then we can kind of place the keep and the gatehouse back on there. There we go. All right. Now that we have those parts done, we can also throw in the towers. Now, when it comes to where to put wall towers, you want to have them enough space in between them so that there's an attack radius for your archers that are on top, or catapults, or whatever defensive things that you have. So notice that there's no tower over on this side, so we might want to put one over here on this side here. It's okay if it covers the wall walk. That's fine. And then we can put another tower over here. I notice that there's no tower here, and there's no tower here as well. And so now you can see that there's like an attack radius. You want to make sure that you can make sure that that defenders have a way of reaching the attackers. Because if they scale this wall You notice here that they won't be able to defend it with that tower, but you do have this wall walk here for defense. And really, what makes a castle more believable is its functionality and truth. Now, you can add fantasy elements to it and all that stuff, but just know that what makes a castle more believable is when you add more functional elements to it, like the wall walk, the crenellated walls, the gatehouse, all of those elements. Because they actually exist in real castles, you want to make sure that you include them in here, because that's really the believability part, okay? Let's go ahead and save it at 73 changes. We're going to add the infrastructure parts, we'll add details and texturing, and then we're going to call it good, because we really only have about 15 minutes left here. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate everyone watching here. Okay. Let's go ahead and take in these elements right here. And what I'll do is really what determines the infrastructure part is really its proximity to other buildings. So for me personally, if I wanted to, let's say if this was a stable, I'd want to have it close to the gatehouse, because that is where the gatehouse is, right? So maybe I want to put a stable right here. If I have like a regular farmer's building, then maybe I'll want to scale this down and I'll want to put it over here, right? And then we can also put in like a garden or some crops over here. I don't want it to be in the shadow of the castle. But when it comes to putting down a smaller garden or a crop, I want to make sure that it's not being covered up by the shadow. I want to maximize the amount. Okay, let's go ahead and just add in some more elements here. Let's add in this small one right here, copy paste. We'll scale it down. There we go. Put another structure right here. That looks good. There we go. Let's actually add a couple of these. Copy and paste. Put another one right here. Yeah, that looks good right there. Okay, that's cool. 1, 2, 3. The only thing is that the shadows of the roofs are a little off. So you'll have to like rotate the roofs if you want the shadows to all be facing the right way. That's the only kind of thing that I would say. There we go. Oops, I didn't want to rotate all of it. My bad. There we go. We'll exit out of here. Open up this one. Just want to make sure that the roof shadows are all kind of facing the same way. Just for, at least for some kind of continuity. Okay, here we go. Not really a giant fan of this keep, but I think it'll work. Really, there's a lot of different unique shapes that you can make for a keep. This is just kind of the simplest one that I can think of for the moment. Let's throw in maybe just a couple more structures here. Right here. Okay, throw one this in here. Let's actually let's put this one over here like this, and then we can kind of create this area. All right, so now that that part's done, let's also add in some other necessary infrastructure parts like a well. Got to put in a well. That's going to be necessary. You could put it in the center, or you could put it somewhere closer to the castle. Up to you on where you really want to put the well. I'll put it right here for now. I think that works fine. And then once I've kind of put down this part, now I can start putting down access or road points. And so what I'll end up using is go to texture, and we can look for a texture that we want to be a road. And there's a lot of different options you could choose from. There's this mossy rock, this stone wall texture right here. You could use this warm rocky. You could use this rough stone path. It's up to you which one you want to use. Just remember to always bring the scale down. That's kind of an important thing. And when it comes to texturing, good blending is about multiple strokes. Okay, you're never going to just put down one stroke of one texture at 100% and it's going to look good. That is not how texturing works. A painter knows that a painting requires many strokes for the blending and for everything to look nice. And so you'll have to do the same thing when you're wanting to create your roads or blend stamps in with the background texture, whatever, or the foreground texture, whatever it is. And what I'll do is I'll bring the opacity down to like 30 of the texture that I want. I'll bring the size of the brush down. And what I'll do is I'll start at the gatehouse. And that texture is still a little too big. Those are huge stones. Let's bring the scale down even more. And what I'll do is I'll start by just putting some stone right here by this structure. And then we'll create a road. that goes to here, and then we'll create a road that goes to here. And these can be made of stone if you want. The roads can also be made of dirt as well. It's up to you. So we'll go ahead and put a little path that goes here. We'll put another path that goes here and here. Okay, so now that you have that part done, that's good. And we also need to create an entrance to get into the castle. So we'll have to put this down right here. Oopsie, that is a huge scale. Let's bring it down. Let's go with size 10. That'll be fine. So you got to have some kind of entrance to get in there. Okay. All right. So we've got that well. We have that little path here. Let's go ahead and create some fence stuff. Maybe we want to create a fenced off area for the stable. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll use the pen, and you just type in fence, and there should be some fencing right here. Okay, we're almost done. Let's make sure that the scale is right. So I'll place some down just to make sure that it looks right. Oop, can't really see it. There we go. And we'll put a shadow on there as well, because I can barely see it. We want to get a little bit of shadow on here. There we go. That'll make it pop out. You notice how it pops out? See how flat it looks? But then when I add that shadow, it really, really pops out. So kind of important to remember that. I'm also going to just do some minor adjustments. I'm just going to make it a little bit darker. There we go. Okay, now I can go in and kind of create a stable kind of section. I want to make sure there's room. So we'll go ahead and let's escape. We'll undo that. Let's do it again. Let's say this size right here should be good. I want to have room for troops to maneuver around. Okay. Enter. And then we'll have a gate location. And we'll also create another gate right here. So I'll just use this for that. So one gated spot. That way it's like direct access to here. So when I go to put down this, there's a step that goes right here into this area right here. Okay. And now I can start adding in some stuff. I can start adding grass. I can add in trees. I can add in more fence area if I want. Lots of different stuff. Let's say that I want to throw in maybe some grass or something, so that I can just bring the scale down. And then we'll just add a little grass. This part right here will be grass. Right here. And in fact, I'll remove this part right here. I don't need that. So what I'll end up doing is just take this right here, and I'll play with the node. Oopsie. Here we go. There we go. All right. Okay. Oops. I noticed that it needs to go down a layer as well. There we go. Okay. And so we got some grass there. I can put trees. I can put a couple trees in there. Let's also maybe put some grass in right here. A little bit right here. Let's put some right here. That looks good. I don't think we need to add much more grass than this. There wouldn't be a whole lot. Now let's go ahead and create like the sense of busyness. How is it that I make it look like it's been trodden on, right? It's been tread on. And so what I'll use is I use dry grass, which I think is a really great texture. Again, as always, scale it down. I do want it somewhat bright, but not too bright. So I'll bring the brightness down a little bit. And then I'll bring the opacity up. And then we'll bring it down a little bit more. And then we'll bring the brush size down. Or the scale, texture scale. I want to be able to get a lot of it. There we go. Now I can go in and just kind of create this dirt to make it look like it's been treaded upon. And so we can add this kind of dirt in here. We'll add a lot of it in here where the horse would be. Kind of makes sense. Let's put some along the edge. A little bit in here. Here, there we go. All right, now the next step is we also want to create access to this wall walk. How is it that people get to the wall walk? Do they go on the tower and then they come onto the wall walk? Or is there some entrance or some staircase that leads up to the wall walk? So we'll have to do that. Let's type in stair. We're almost done. 6 more minutes and we're going to call it good. Let's go ahead and throw down this staircase here. To show that the wall, that it's a tall wall, you would use a longer staircase. If you wanted to show the wall was short, then you would use the shorter one. But I'll use the longer one. I'm also going to make adjustments. I want to bring the brightness down, and then we'll flip it. Just for those who don't know, if you're kind of curious which part of the staircase is going up and down, it's not complex. You see this shadow right here on the staircase? That is the shadow of the riser. That's where you like stub your toe, right? That's called a riser. And the shadow part is facing towards the stairs going down. Okay? So if you ever have a hard time understanding which is up and down on a staircase, it's not complex. The shadow of the riser is facing down. Okay, so just so you know, because sometimes people get kind of confused, like, well, wait a minute, what is it? And I don't want to put it here because see how it blocks that staircase there? So I might want to move it over to somewhere else. Maybe I want to put it right here. Maybe this will work better right here. We'll bring the scale down because it's absolutely massive. There we go. Copy, paste. I want to put another one in here. Maybe put another one right here. The way to access these staircases. So you got to have what's called access. Access is super important. How are players or defenders or whatever going to access the wall? And there's a lot of different ways that they can access the wall. Okay. I noticed that there's some of the wall walk is sticking out right here. We'll have to end up fixing some of that. Okay, let's take a step back at it. We got about 4 more minutes. I'm going to save it and add in some last real quick elements, just some detail elements. So that way you know what kind of details to put in it. And then we're going to call it good. And then in future streams with castles, we'll cover more complex castle structures, bigger ones, more fantasy element ones. We'll cover all of that stuff. So I'm kind of excited about that. So let's go ahead and throw in the details part. I think a horse is a good idea. I'm going to use a white one because it pops out. So we'll put in a white horse. Oopsie, that is way too big. Here's your horse right here. It's a nice size horse, right? It's good. Okay, we'll put the horse in here. We'll put him kind of just hanging out over here. There we go. So you got some horsies. Nice. Put another one right here, maybe. That looks good. Let's throw in some artisan stuff. Like we could throw in, let's throw in a fireplace for, let's say, like a blacksmith. There should be a nice one right here. And maybe the blacksmith space is right here where they work. Or you could put a blacksmith right here if you want. It's up to you. Wherever you feel best that a blacksmith might go. I like to have them, let's go ahead and put it right here, I think she'll look good. And then we'll throw on some light sources, and then some, we'll also throw down some smoke for the chimneys, and then we'll call it good. So some light there, that's where that's going to be. We could also throw down the fence. Maybe you want that blacksmith has a fenced in area. We'll have to push it down a layer, of course. There we go. So there's a little entrance to kind of go into this blacksmith thing. You could do the same thing here. You could add all kinds of little fenced in little areas like this. And then put a little bit of green there. And then since there's a stone chimney right here, or a stone for a blacksmith, a furnace, I'll go ahead and put extra stone underneath that. Kind of makes sense, right? Otherwise, it's going to sink into the dirt or the grass. So putting a stone underneath it will keep it from, either falling into the dirt or to keep it level, as you would expect. So those are just kind of the minor details, and then throw in a couple trees. And what I'll throw in is I'll throw in an apple tree, because it kind of makes sense if you're going to have a tree. Just any old tree doesn't look nice. You want some kind of a tree that's going to produce fruit or something. So I think it's good to throw in like an apple tree. And then maybe you want to throw in a different type of different trees or bushes that have some kind of fruit on it. That's fine. Because the people there got to eat, right? So wherever there's that kind of stuff, it's always good to put that in there. Okay. All right, last thing I'll do is just paint in some real quick shadows. Top layer. It seems like brown is the dominant color here, so I'll just use a dark brownish color for my shadow. We're going to go with 30%. We'll choose a location for where the light source is. I'll have the light source right here, facing that way. And then now it's easy to go in and decide where I want my shadows to be. And I can just kind of go in right here and just kind of create the dark shadows that you would kind of expect, where the shadow is here, some shadow here, put some shadowing in here. And if it's too brown, you can always make it a little bit darker, like make it a little bit more here. That way you could kind of throw that in if you want. And I even throw it underneath here to kind of make these elements kind of pop out more. There we go. Here, all on this side too, where that light source is, right? Add in that shadow work here. We'll add in more. You'll notice how much the top layer, how well the top layer works to kind of create these shadows to make things pop out. That's really kind of the trick there. Go. Let's add another shadow here, here. Okay. All right. So you guys get the general concept on how to put castles together. Just, if I were you, I would go to the top of the chat and just clone and edit that map that I made, that castle builder, and then just kind of play around with that. And if that just doesn't suit your fancy, then it's okay to just start putting together. Just remember the trick first. Make all the components, and there are two types. There's going to be your fortified structures. Remember, they have crenellations, embrasures, and merlons, as well as wall walk. And then you also want to create your infrastructure elements. And if you want to make a large castle, it's not complex. Just create a larger keep, larger gatehouses, more gatehouses, create an inner and an outer ward, lots of different stuff. So really, it's not complex. Making a castle is simple. You just need to make the components first. And then you're going to create the terrain, create the wall, and the wall is obviously going to be the frame in which all the embattled or the fortified structures are going to be and where the infrastructure is going to be. So it's not complex. It's actually pretty easy. And we'll create more castles. I'll be creating tons more castles on my profile as well to kind of give you guys inspiration on what kind of castles that you might want to create. There's also a really cool technique where you can take the castles and fortifications pack from the city, from the watercolor cities pack, and you can actually make miniature castles with them, and that way you can kind of practice and get ready for it. So I'll give you a quick example, just real quick, because I don't want to go over too long. You can use these elements right here to make just mini castles, just to kind of get yourself practicing. And they already have the components, right? These fortified towers, keeps, they have those already there for you. You don't have to make them. See these fortified buildings right here? That's perfect. And then for the shape tool, we have fortified walls that you can use right here with the line and shape tool. So practice as well, making tiny little castles with watercolor cities. That way you can kind of get a general idea on how to make them and kind of put them out. And I totally recommend that you also check out go to like wherever website to find your images and then kind of look up castles. So what I normally do is before I decide to make a castle map, what I'll end up doing is that I'll look up castles that I want to mimic or emulate, and I won't make the castle verbatim, or not verbatim, but make it identical. What I'll do is I'll take elements from multiple castles that I like, and then I'll mash them together. Because that way you're not like, I mean, you can, of course, like if you're making a historical map and you want to make a historical castle, totally fine. Just download the floor plan and then just build on top of that. But if you want your own unique castle, take all your favorite elements. Like what I'll do is I'll take 4 castle images that I like, and I'll take one element from each of those images and then add them into my castle so they look interesting. So that's really it. So not complex. They seem overwhelming at first when you put together a castle, but starting with a small one, make these mini castles with the watercolor city style, then kind of build yourself up, make the components, and then you can kind of go from there. Okay. All right. Well, I've been rambling on for far too long. We should call this good. We'll be adding the new stream calendar and the events for Discord for the weekly map prompts on our Discord server. So definitely go join our Discord server. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Had a really good time making this castle with you all. You notice that it only took an hour to make it. So really, it's not complex. Once you have the method down, once you have a method of putting together a castle, they're just so much easier to make. That's really my trick. The way that I make something quick is I always develop a method so that way it's easy to make. All right. Thank you so much. Please stay safe and healthy. And I will see you all next stream. Okay? Auf Wiedersehen, everyone. Bye.